Hello guys, and welcome back to the next tutorial in which we will talk about how to convert numeric data types. And these are basically the conversions that we're gonna do quite a bit. And basically what happens is that we convert sometimes from integers to doubles when we want to include the decimal places, or vice versa if we have decimal places in our calculations when we do like average of people and stuff like that, and then we want to drop uh, the decimal place and just display the whole value of that. So we would convert from double to integer. So let's get to it and see how it is done. So let's create an example. So let's use a double, and we say x, and let's say it's 34.345, and then we have an integer y, and let's convert. Okay, so we want to have the 34.345 to convert to just integer where it's not gonna have the decimal place. So what happens is that we're gonna say like this. We say y equals, and we can't just say x because it just doesn't work like that, and we'll talk about later why. But there's two different methods how to do it, and I'm gonna show you both of them. So the first one, it's a simpler one. We just open parentheses and say int inside, and then after that we're gonna put what we want to convert, and so we say in this case x. Okay, so what's gonna happen here is that it's gonna take an x, convert to integer, and then it's gonna save it into y. And let's print it out. So dot line, and we want to see y in this case. Okay, so let's see where we're gonna have control F5, and we get 34 just as we expected. Okay, so basically drops this decimal place and stores it into the y. Okay, one thing while we're here, I want to show you how it does the rounding. So if we would change this to 745 and run it again, control F5, you will see that it converts to 34 still. Okay, so there is no rounding is done, just so you be aware of that. Okay, another way to do it, to convert, let's change it back, is instead of just using this type, we can use a function that you will see, and it's called convert, and then we put a dot and we say what we want to convert to, and in this case it's int32, so we're gonna select int32, and then in parentheses we're gonna put what we want to convert, so in this case x, and let's see, control F5, how this will work. Okay, and it's 34 again. Now let's look at this if we change this to 7 again. Okay, control F5, and you see right now that in using this type conversion, this gets rounded up. Okay, so that's not the only difference. It's actually different the way that C# converts and compiles. It does it a little bit differently, but we're not going to talk about that right now. You just have to know that this method, and this is actually the one that we're going to use most of the time, and this does round up or round down. Okay, so this is how you convert from double to int. Okay, what happens if you want to convert the other way around? Let's comment this out, and let's see, let's create integer x, and let's put it 4004, and then we're gonna create double y. Okay, and then let's convert it, and we're gonna say y equals, and then let's use the other kind, double, and then here we're gonna put x. Okay, so, and we're gonna print it out. Let's see what happens, and control F5, and it does get converted. And so in this case, if you see, it turned into a little different color right here, and if you highlight it over, and this little light bulb here gives us suggestion something is either run or different things. And so when you see this light bulb, it says the cast is redundant, meaning there is no need to convert. And the point is that, first of all, there is obviously no decimal place, and that the integer is smaller than the double. And so therefore, going from the smaller to bigger number, we don't need it. And so in this case, we can just say that we don't need this conversion. We can just convert to x like that. And if you will run it, you will see that it actually will work. Okay, so going from the smaller to bigger number, we don't need the conversion, but going from the bigger to smaller, we need to. Okay, now before we go, we're gonna do one more example, and this is basically converting from a bigger to smaller number. And let's see how it will work. Okay, let's comment this again, and let's say we want to create short and x, and then we're gonna use int y, and let's say it's equals to 40. Okay, well, we all know that the integer is bigger than short, right? But the 40 is a smaller number, right? So obviously short can store 40 in it. So let's see if it will convert. Okay, so let's see how are we gonna do this. Let's say x, we're gonna say that, and then we're gonna put convert to short, and outside we're gonna put ry. Okay, and then in this case we do want to print out x. Okay, let's run and see what happens. Control F5, and we get 40. Okay, so it does work. Now let's see what happens. We know that the integer, the short, can store up to 32,000 something. So what if we overload it? What if we say it's 40,000, right? And so let's run it again and see what happens. Okay, and if you see, it gives us this negative number. Okay, and obviously this is not what we're expecting. Okay, so in this case the conversion is happening, but it stores a different wrong value in it. Okay, and I will talk about in a minute why it does that. Okay, and basically what happens is that it can convert and store, but it won't store the right number. Okay, so let's look at what's happening here and why it is like that. So let's go to the whiteboard, and let's look at it this kind of explaining way. So let's say we have a small short, right? And then we have a bigger number, which is an integer in this case, right? And then let's say we had another one, right? So the first time we had a 40, which was like this small tiny number, right? And when we convert to the smaller one, obviously this can fit in there, right? So because it's smaller. In the other case, we had a 40,000, which was just a bigger number than this short, right? So what happens is basically it moved all these numbers up there, and you know, if you know, in the computers inside we have all these ones and zeros in there, many of them. And so what happened is that it moved all this in there, and then it dropped this off, and it basically got lost. So this number that got transferred over here was translated, and that's why we saw the negative weird number, right? So basically it didn't convert the rest of these numbers, and that's why we got a weird number. So what usually happens is that in this case, and that's why I like the other one better, is when you use convert, and then in this case we want to do to int 16, because that's what the short is, and we're gonna put y in there. And when we run this, guess what's gonna happen? Control F5, and as you see in this situation, we get an error. Okay, basically the program runs into the problem. Later we will know what that is, exception and all that stuff, but for now you just have to know that when you use the other kind conversion, it will basically give us an error. Okay, and this is, you think it might be worse, but it is actually better, because if in your program something happens and the bigger number gets stored, you do want your program you do want to know when that happens in your program, because you don't want the wrong value to be in there. Okay, if anything, you want an error come up and be like, oh, there's a problem, let's fix it. Okay, so this is why from now on, most of the time we're gonna be using this version instead of the parentheses. Okay, so this is it for now, and I will see you in next tutorial.